Okay.
So many of you have seen Richard Kerr's story, and it's absolutely heartbreaking what he went through. But it's such important work exposing these monsters and the stuff surrounding the Kincora boys' home. Richard has been battling this, and it's been going on for years now, but he has achieved some major successes, which we're going to get to.
Uh-huh.
Now, Richard was just telling me that he did have some experience with Channel 4, and he has a perspective on the Russell Brand situation. So before we get into Richard's story and how he's doing, what's your perspective of Channel 4, Richard?
Well, they did a 4-year investigation into this, and they would not have come out if they didn't have something else on this individual, let's say. Okay. Uh, there would no way they would have put that out unless they're going to have program two to come out. Okay. So they had the first one came out, and that means they'll already have another one in line. Okay. So they're probably waiting back to see how the reaction is going to be. So I'm just saying that I have a lot of respect for Channel 4, but there are things that they do that I don't agree with. And
What are those things, Richard?
well, there's a lot of examples of that, and I think Stuart has experienced some of that when he was in London.
I was with Richard in London in
Mm-hmm.
April of 2015 when that first one was taped. So I'm not exactly sure what Richard's speaking of, but I was there, and the whole time I didn't appear in the final cut, but I was there.
And what did you observe, Stuart?
I observed that they wanted to take him around to the places where events where he might have encountered people or things that like there was several different places that we went. They wanted to know his experiences there, and I they were wanting to know if certain people were involved. They appeared to have an interest in what was going on. I don't know whether they had an agenda or not.
Well, let me
I
explain
wasn't
it.
really, I really
Sure.
wasn't able to see that.
Well, let me explain it, Sean. They wanted to isolate him.
Yeah, they isolated me.
Okay.
They isolated me, and when they went up to see some people, they wouldn't take me, and they did not want me around. They didn't want me to know
Because he
anything.
may be an influence on what I say. They didn't want that. They wanted to control. They wanted to control the narrative. Okay. I wouldn't give them information. I give them some information, but I wouldn't give them a lot of information regarding names. I did give them a few names, but they didn't want me to speak those names out. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
I think I understand that you're saying that they're selective then when it comes to who they're
No,
going
no,
after.
no. The reason why they didn't want those names because they were friends of them.
What I did
I
see,
mean, there's a lot of stuff you're not knowing, Sean.
what I saw was is that there were a lot of things that Richard was emotionally. Uh,
No, I was emotionally okay.
no. Let me finish. He was not. Uh, really would not have been in his best interest to start talking about these
Yeah,
things. And so when I would interrupt them and maybe re-guide the conversation, then they would isolate me and get me away.
well,
That was mainly what it was. But that was the major thing. And emotionally, he was fine, but it was just that maybe there's some things that it might have been in his best interest to not discuss.
So you're saying that they are part of the problem? They're being selective about who they expose?
I don't know that they're a part of the problem. I could not get their agenda. They. I could not find. I could not determine whether or not they were had any bad intention or not. It, that's just what I saw them doing was to
well,
not getting me to. I have no idea about that. They seem to have pretty good idea of how they wanted to do the program. So
well, at that time, while I was at the hotel at the King's Cross Hotel over there in King's Cross, at the back of their studios, suddenly the BBC turns up at the hotel. My brother's there to witness this. Stuart was there to witness that. Chris Moore turns up from the BBC. And they wanted to take me out of there and put me on their side. Do you understand what I'm saying here, Sean? What's going on here? This stuff has never came out. I had actors that abused me when I was a child in London, but they didn't want me to publish those names because they were friends. Think about what I'm saying here. Okay? So, if you want to get justice, why are you trying to say this and that, and then you're not willing to expose those that they know? So, I'm saying is that it's mucky. I'm not saying Channel 4 has done anything kind of dishonest, but I'm saying if they're going to open this up, this kind of inquiry with what happened with these girls, I usually call them because I look at myself as a child when these things happen. You got to understand that they probably have another part of this. It hasn't come out yet.
I didn't see anything sinister about the interviews and what was going on, but there again, I might not have known the whole story about what was going on.
Yeah, but then why did you send them a letter, Stuart?
Don't recall what you're speaking.
A letter to Channel 4 that you were going to sue them.
No, I didn't.
You sent a letter saying that you cannot do this with the patient.
Okay.
I remember that letter. I have a copy of that letter.
Okay, I'm not recalling that.
But. Okay. So I'm saying this, and I know Stuart's been very helpful, but there are things that when he's been isolated, he doesn't know what's happening in those situations since he's not there, right? Okay, so I'm the one there. It's about what happened with me, and the same thing with the BBC. So I've been hearing on the TV that there's been a little bit of manipulation with these TV programs regarding some of these victims. Let's call them victims at the moment. I knew when they went anonymous, they were going to go to the police. That's the only way to do this. Okay? They were going to make a complaint. What I'm saying is that there's probably another part to this, another story of this. And I'm not surprised that 60 Minutes jumped on this right away. Because I know a lot about 60 Minutes Australia. Okay? All right? Because they never informed me, Sean, on 60 Minutes, that they were going to have other individuals on that program. I never was told about it. So they may be doing a shot of me, filming me, while they're filming somebody else at a different location. And I'm not being informed that somebody else is coming on that program. So this is what I'm trying to say, is that, you know, I've got to speak the truth on it because it's been a part of a story that's being generalized to their narrative, where I've not been able to tell more of what actually went on here. And I'm doing better with all of this. I've gotten through a lot of this, but I am having courts. I've gotten some wins at the courts, by the way. Just to let you know. Cheers. And you know what I'm saying, Sean? I know you went through a hard life here, a difficult time in United States with the drug problem and everything else. I know Russell, I actually know him, but he went through a hard time too with the drugs and the recovery process.
How'd you know Russell?
Oh, he was in one of the programs. You know, he used to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay? And respecting his anonymity, you know? So there's an anonymity has to be respected here. So I can't talk on brigging his anonymity, if that makes any sense.
But you're saying there's a big picture. That's the impression I'm getting. There's a big picture with these media channels whereby he's not in the club, so that's why they're going after him. But if you're a friend of them, then they don't go after you. They conceal it.
I would say yes. More, yes, yes, yes. They have more of they can manipulate it a little bit. Okay, and the truth, my truth, is not always agreeable to their truth of what they want to say. But I'm neutral in the idea that the fact is he may have been involved in some of this, uh, but did he step over the line? That's the key. And if somebody wants to push somebody over the line, is where I'm trying to express that that could be manipulated. If that makes what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. If somebody went up to the line about where it didn't become criminal, but they needed to push that gender over the line, that's where what I see that they're capable of doing.
They're capable of pushing it over the line, the media.
Yes. Yes.
Because we had a lawyer on the other night, and he said, worst case scenario, Russell Brand could be incarcerated in the UK and California if the police pursue it as a criminal matter.
Yes. If they do pursue it as a criminal matter. But right now, that's where it is right now. It's not. It's only an investigation. Okay. And let them work their investigation out. I mean, my faith in the Scotland Yard is not very. I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence in Scotland Yard. But as I say, whoever's pushing the agenda with them to do this, I basically believe that there's another part of this is coming out. I'm saying they have hold back on the second story. Okay.
And you said you don't have much faith in Scotland Yard. What's that based on?
Well, that's based on my experience and on the experience of others. Yeah.
And for viewers who are not familiar with your experience, then could you elaborate?
Well, when they investigated certain aspects of my case in London, they would send out people to tell me to keep quiet about the matter. And it was not where they were investigating it. They wanted to close it up. We just had, I think it's being played tonight, a program called The Lost Boys, and we had Chris Moore involved in that and Colin Wallace. And they have done a research to do evidence to track down that the police were told to cover it up.
Wow.
And were told to change the statements. They altered my statements, John. What I mean is, I'll give you an example. They changed my birth certificate on the statement. So they want to put 1 year different of my age. So on the statement says I was born in 1960. I wasn't born in 1960. I was born in 1961. But let's say some journalists wanted to do an investigation into my story and they found those papers. They'd look at that and then they'd go from there. All right. Even the Sunday Times article got a hold of that and said something about me in the Sunday Times. It's funny, Sunday Times and the Channel 4 together. Right. So I'm saying is that there has been a huge way of trying to control this, and I've been trying to peel this onion. And so the program called The Lost Boys will explain more of what I'm saying. And if you get an opportunity, I know you're busy, get a chance to watch the clips.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, Rupert Murdoch owns the Sunday Times.
Yeah. Yes, and he's retired now, right? He's stepping down, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so for the viewers then who are not familiar with Richard's story, he was in Kincora Boys' Home. And what period of time was that?
Okay. That's the other thing I'll talk about. Okay. 1966, I was taken away at night and then put into a first orphan home, a state home, I call them, a place called Williamson House. Uh, the abuse started when I was 8, and I've never mentioned the other person's name who was trafficked with me, but for the first time, I'm going to. His name is Eddie Atchison. He was another boy who was trafficked out of Williamson House. Okay, and we were taking certain locations. All right, so that was the start of that, and then in 1975, I was transferred over to Kincora.